One of the most expensive parts that actually come with raising cattle, especially for beef, is your feed. Now, if you live in a growing climate where you can grow grass and pasture almost all year long, that obviously greatly reduces your cost. However, if you live in a northern climate like we do, we really only can have actively growing grass, depending upon the weather for the year, really is like May through October. And that's if we get enough rainfall in July and August. There have been years that we've actually had to start feeding hay in August simply because everything dried up and there was not enough feed for the cows. So solving that problem so that you can have your pasture grow even through the drought as well as into the cool months and kind of have that variety is really key, because that can cut your costs almost in half, especially if you can have more standing forage as we move into the cold months where the grass isn't growing. But if we've got a lot of growth there to turn them on, that can be almost an entire month's worth of extra that we're not having to buy hay for. Plus, if we can get our pastures to a point of fertility that they're producing double, then we have the potential that we could actually hay some of our own pastures and not have to buy all of our own hay. So all of that is really great. However, there's a lot of challenges that can come in there, especially when you are dealing with pasture that is less than ideal soil health, which is what we have here on this piece. So in this video, I brought in and wanted to share with you what it looks like, the struggle, what we're dealing with, and a soil expert in order to help us figure out a plan that will bring our soil fertility up and hopefully double our pasture, which also means cutting our costs to produce feed and keep our cattle. So Karson Rippstein came up from Redmond Agriculture and did a complete analysis and walkthrough with us. So I'm really excited to share that video with you guys. So Houston, we have a problem. We are growing very successfully a field of thistles.
Yeah, it's beautiful thistle.
Beautiful thistles. They are lush, they are prolific, they reseed and come back very well. However, the cows don't enjoy them, except, funnily enough, when I'm coming through and trying to, chop them down without chopping down my grass, they will come behind me and eat them after I have deadheaded them.
Isn't it funny? They really will.
I was like,
why
you've
would
got
you
to
do
be
that
kidding
when
me.
they...
With it standing, like, could you save me some work of literally going by hand and scything the heads of these off? Yes, so, but we knew when we bought this pasture, which was 2 years ago, we knew that this particular pasture had a lot of thistles in it, and the other ones didn't. So we knew that we were going to be dealing with the thistles. I don't think I quite understood how many thistles were in this field until we really got out here and started managing everything. So my goal is, one, I don't want these to continue to spread to our other pastures and infect them. I want to do everything naturally. Obviously, I'm not going to be bringing in, Roundup and other ways to kill them, because I do need the pasture that's growing in here. We'll be moving the cattle back on this. But because these aren't super high, I can't really take my mower and mow these with the tractor because I'm going to be cutting down the grass, and I need the grass as pasture. So I feel like I'm kind of in this weird cycle. So thank you for coming to help.
Yes, anytime, anytime. It's important to realize that weeds are not the problem, they are the symptom of the problem.
Okay.
So your problem is not that you have thistles, there's something else going on.
So we need to read the soil, which you're going to help me read.
Yes, that's hopefully what we're going to do, is look at the soil and see what the heck is causing the problems. And we might not be able to figure it out, but hopefully we can help you at least eliminate some of them.
Okay.
Look how beautiful this grass is.
Yes.
That'd be interesting.
No thistles, very lush. And thistles dead. Brown.
Look at that.
It's almost like an exact line.
Mm-hmm. And it's like this big swoop right here.
It is. All right, so we've got thistles here, but unlike in a lot of the other sections of the field where we still have a lot of green, this is really brown and dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the difference is, the reason it's brown and dead is the type of grass is different. you notice this grass here is all headed out.
Yeah.
And you can see all the heads. It's yellow instead of green. It's because it's an annual grass instead of perennial grass.
Okay.
Annual grasses come to same thing. Where it's overgrazed, that's where the annual grasses love to be.
It's going to come in.
Yep.
Probably because there's bare soil because it's been overgrazed, and so the seeds can actually germinate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, and then what happened is the cow sat there and ate the perennial grasses so much that the grass is like, okay, I'm no longer going to live here because I can't even go up and seed out. That's my purpose in life. And so these ones are like, well, I can grow really fast and drop my seed and grow. It's bare dirt.
Okay.
So that's why that happens.
So that's why. So we need to get some perennials established in here, but one, with keeping the cows off. I mean, the pasture rotation on that alone should help.
Correct.
But we need to get some perennials established back into this section.
Yes, and also what happens is now this spot, yeah, but if we did a moisture test, this is going to be a lot drier than where the green grass is.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it gets the same amount of rain.
And actually, what's funny is this is the low spot. So in theory, you would think that this would have more moisture because it would have ran down and pooled. But no, it's
definitely
drier.
not.
No.
So here's some of the things I would do in these areas.
Yeah.
So the first one you could do is plant a cover crop. Okay. So like right now, it sounds like in your climate you have great grass in the spring.
Yes.
And then in the summer when it gets hot and dry, it kind of dies out. It stops growing.
Exactly. Yeah. Usually by the first part of August and through August, we have no growth. A lot of the pasture will die off depending on the severity of the heat and the length, if it was started earlier in the year, etc. There have been times where we've actually had to feed hay in August. Rains come back the end of September, and we might get a little bit of growth before we're starting to feed hay pretty much predominantly the end of October, 1st of November, all the way through May.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of a different cycle than a lot of people,
we
right?
do,
yeah,
yes.
It's kind of interesting. So what I would do is, one of the main things you can do is plant a warm season cover crop.
Okay.
So we don't have these times when things are dead. Your soil, you don't want things to be dead in your soil, especially during the summer when it's hot. You want living things. So you'll want to plant a cover crop that's kind of drought tolerant, that's built for your climate, and that will kind of help, because thistle love bare ground too. They're just trying to be a cover crop, but it's nature's cover crop, right? So it's the wrong kind of cover crop.
Nature was not the cover crop I wanted.
Yes. So plant a cover crop that will actually bring you some grazing, so like sorghum or Sudan grass, something like that. I don't know your climate super well, but
there's some places to look.
Those are some places, and you can talk to seed companies, but you'll want to plant something so that you don't just have a whole bunch of dead annual grasses.
Yeah.
Because it looks like that's the greatest climate for your thistles.
Yes, I agree. Actually, it's funny, looking out of the whole pasture, you're right, because where this is the annual grass that you can just see now is hitting those dead patterns. I mean, for the majority of it, it is, and then you just have a little bit of a section here where it's still pretty green, but it's probably just where it's spread out from this initial
area.
Yep.
So you do that. My second thing would be to bale graze this. So when you're feeding your cows, feed your cows on this so that they can take the nutrients from your feed and put it to the soil, the natural way. So,
poop. We're talking manure.
Yep, we want the cow's manure here.
Yes.
To bring organic matter, to bring microbial function, all that from the cow. So that's the cool thing. So put your bale feeders here and move it along this. Yep. Okay. You don't want to beat it up super bad.
Right.
But just enough, just move it through this section.
Okay. That we can handle.
And it'll be, I think that'll really help. So all these things will really help. The other one's something you're already doing, which is taking off the heads before they go to seed. But that sucks.
It does. The front half of the pasture I did really good on, and then we have reached, I feel like in the garden, like you reach that stage of summer where you're like, plants are higher than the weeds. I'm like, I'm done. Kind of where I am with the thistles. So I'm like, we got that half done. I'm kind of finished with it for now. Yeah,
and another thing I'll say is there's certain things, so thistle-like soil that's compacted, that has been overgrazed, that just isn't doing that well.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might need like a little spark to microbial life. So Redmond has their mineral light products.
Okay.
That are a spark to microbial life. The goal of the products is to make the soil alive, because our job is not to feed the the plants, it's to feed the microbes, then, you know, the whole system.
Yeah.
So that would be a great way to maybe even try this in these patches that are really poor and see if that will kind of help it give a spark.
When is the best time of year then to apply that? Like just now?
Just now. Always. If you'll ever talk to me, my favorite time to apply anything is now.
Okay.
You know, when you're working with natural products, you know,
Yeah.
when you're working with fertilizers and stuff, they'll burn and kill. And when you're working with natural products, the great thing is nature knows what the heck to do with it. So you don't have to worry about timing near as much. The best time is the spring, but now's best.
Okay. All right. Well, I have got some homework to do.
You do, but I think you can do it.
I love your vote of confidence because I got to be honest, as I'm looking at this, I'm like,
oh, it's overwhelming.
Like a sea of thistles. I mean, I don't know if the camera can pick it up. I'll do some panning of it, but yeah, I look out and all I'm seeing is thistles with a few lovely little bachelor button flowers amongst the mix.
Well, the thing is, remember, like we said earlier, nature's healing itself. So. But you do not want a pasture full of thistles, so I understand the frustration. And it's kind of a long game. So when you're using nature instead of using chemicals and that kind of stuff, it's a long game. It really is. It's not like 1 year you do something, it's going to go away. As much as us as humans want that.
Really want that. Yeah.
It's going to be a couple-year process. But you know what I've done? Another thing is to, like you mentioned before, you rested this pasture.
Yeah.
Maybe even, you know, let this one grow, be the last pasture you touch in the spring or something like that.
Okay.
The longer rest periods can also help with these things like this.
Okay. Well, I've got a prescription.
You just got to do it.
I just got to do it. We got to implement it and then see what happens the following years.
I think, yeah, that is interesting. It really is overgrazing. That is really the problem with your thistle.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I see thistle that seems to come because like the neighbor has thistle or something, but right. I think these have they're just where they're at is such spots that they.
Well, it's funny because we were kind of chatting about that beforehand, and like I said, when I look at our other pastures, I've been really happy actually that there's very few thistles in the other pastures because this one is so heavily infested. I'm a little surprised that the other ones don't have the infestation, but the cows have always, even when there was other herds on here that weren't ours, we would drive by and the cows would predominantly, this was the field that they always liked to be in.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was their favorite spot. They had the grass here was their favorite. They just sit here and camp out.
Too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing.
Turns into a bad thing.
It's true.
Even
it really
with cattle.
is.
Yeah.
That is your problem. But the cool thing is now you as a manager can fix these problems by just changing the way it was done and it will go away.
So as you can see, it's starting to rain, and the fall rains mean that when I actually put supplements on the pasture, that the rain and the moisture can actually get those activated and take them down into the soil. So we are coming up with our game plan based upon what Karson's shared with me, and I can't wait to share with you what this looks like next year and in the following years as it improves, hopefully every single year.